Welcome to This Week Inside Sim Racing, January 14th, 2018 edition. It's crazy. It's like we were doing shows in 2017, and then all of a sudden 2018 came. And a couple weeks into 2018. So, apologize for the gap in shows. We'll talk more about that later. But, yeah, wanted to bring back I wanted to bring back This Week Inside Sim Racing. Obviously, this isn't the live format. Obviously, it's just me. It's almost kind of like what we had previously when me and Darren were in the same place, because here I am with the laptop and going to go over some news stories here. But, for the longest time we've done the show and done it live, people asked, well, not everyone, because some people that really love the live aspect of the show, but there's also people that are kind of like, well, instead of having this cluster that is a live show with a bunch of technical issues, why don't you just record it, and it can be a lot quicker and get to the news items and things like that for those of you who don't go and, follow all the different sim racing news during the week. So gonna go and try to kind of explore that path here starting today. So on the news docket today, gonna be talking about Thrustmaster's new TSPC Racer Ferrari 488 Challenge wheel, the Asus bezel-free triple screen kit that we saw at CES this week that kind of got some attention. I'm gonna kind of blow that one up. The DICE Awards has a racing game of the year, and I think there was some snubbery when it came to that. So I want to talk about that. The Chili Bowl and AI is coming to iRacing, and there's even some other things to talk about there. So a lot of good topics to talk there. A game called Dakar 18 was announced. Okay, well, kind of announced. We'll get more to that. And then I want to do a TLDR review. So a couple weeks ago, I was going to release a review on the Tobii Eye Tracker 4C or whatever it's called. And let's just say I kind of lost motivation on doing that one, and there's a reason for that. So we're going to do the TLDR review here on This Week Inside Sim Racing. Then we're going to do something called The Conversation, which is a kind of a segment we've kind of done from the beginning. It was kind of my original intention of the show, and it's almost kind of gets into beyond the gloves type area that me and Billy were doing. But this week, The Conversation, I want to talk about the eRacing Relevance Struggle. So, relevance? Let's go with relevance. The Relevance Struggle. Because, it's been a whole lot of talk about eRacing, and I have my opinions on it. And then we'll get to happenings. We're going to talk about, got a little bit of a upgrade to the PC back there. You can kind of maybe see it. And then other happenings going on here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the news. I'm going to try to go and put some videos and pictures, make this a little more interesting for you guys to watch on YouTube besides just looking at me. But there will be the audio podcast version up on SoundCloud of this, because it's going to be a little more of a podcast function with a little more, again, kind of like Beyond the Gloves, a little more talky than visual. But I'll try to go and throw some things up into the video version after this. But if you're not entertained, that's on you, because you can always listen to the audio podcast version, listen to it in your car or wherever. So first topic, the Thrustmaster TS PC Racer Ferrari 488 Challenge wheel was announced this week. This is a wheel that we've kind of known about. There were images that people took at, I believe it was Paris Games Week back a couple months ago now. Saw images of it, so kind of knew this was coming, just really didn't talk about it until it was officially announced, but it was officially announced this past week. The biggest thing about this wheel is you get the TSPC Racer base, so we know what that is, nothing new there. The new part is the actual wheel itself, which is the 488 Challenge wheel. Kind of a evolution of the 599XX Evo 30 wheel. Unlike the 599XX though, that's a standalone. You can buy the wheel, put it on any Thrustmaster wheelbase. The TSPC Racer Ferrari 488 Challenge, easy for me to say, is a wheelbase and wheel package. So you have to buy them together. The wheel comes in at 32 centimeters in diameter, which is 2 more centimeters than the 30 centimeter diameter 599 rim. It features 2 D-pads with push functions, 2 metal rotary switches with push functions, and 8 action buttons. So a good amount of buttons on it. I will say I'm not entirely in love with the color scheme of it, if I'm being honest. There's some buttons on there that look a little, I don't know. We'll just have to see when we get our hands on it, kind of how it more looks in real life. But pictures-wise, I do like the metal rotary switches though. I do like those, look pretty cool. It also features a 15 LED rev counter on it, on the actual wheel itself, which is a nice thing to have. Rev counters, how much use they have is kind of dependent on what you do. Obviously, if you race in VR, they have no use at all. I feel like sometimes some cars are more useful than others. I will say, if there is going to be a rev counter, I prefer to have it on the wheel than on the wheel base, because when it's on the wheel base, it's almost just like so far away from you. I don't know if it really helps. It's kind of better to have it right there on the wheel, closest to your peripheral vision. The wheel goes on sale in February, and it will come out at the price of $699 US, 599 pounds, and 649 euros. So this is a bit of a price hike over the TSPC Racer. I actually looked it up on Amazon, and currently in the US you can get a TSPC Racer for $400. So this is a $300 premium, pretty much an upgrade to the wheel. Which, I mean, the TSPC Racer wheel, it's not the flashiest. Remember we did a comparison between the TSPC Racer and I believe it was the Fanatec CSL Elite with the Formula rim. The Fanatec Formula rim, I think, has better button choices. It's definitely nicer materials and stuff like that. You got the actual what gear you're in there. But it was a little small for me. I like to see a little larger, which hopefully that McLaren rim that Fanatec's coming out with will kind of solve that issue. At least I think it will. But anyway, the TSPC Racer, in terms of just being a functional wheel, I think it functions pretty well. I think it's 28 centimeters in diameter, 30 off the top of my head, and it's got nice thick grips on it. So it's a very comfortable wheel to drive on. So yeah, a $300 premium to go and get the LEDs. You get the 32 centimeter diameter, and then you also get, obviously it's Alcantara wrapped and all that kind of stuff. I assume it's going to be, it looks, I obviously don't have it yet, it looks to be pretty similar to the 599, which the 599 is one of my favorite wheels out there in sim racing. I mean, the Alcantara on it is just, I don't think there's anything better than it. I like the Sparco wheels that Thrustmaster's come out with, and I mean, definitely the wrap on the Sparco wheels is nice. It's definitely very grippy, but in terms of just like softness, I feel like the 599 Alcantara is still, maybe a little step above that. It kind of depends on feel. So I still really like that a lot, and looks like we're probably getting something similar here. But yeah, $300 price hike. So definitely a bit of money there. It looks nice. I'm also being interested to know is, I like 30 centimeters in diameter. There's some people that have asked me, I think it was something on Instagram a while back. I don't know if I answered this question, so I apologize. But someone asked, should I get the 599 or get the Sparco 33 centimeter diameter wheel that I'm missing off the top of my head, the Raleigh wheel? And I don't think I answered at the time because I was waiting to see when this was going to be announced, because I kind of saw this wheel as a replacement to the 599. But instead it kind of falls in between here, and I think the 30 centimeters is a more versatile size than 32, because the 33 centimeter diameter wheel from the Sparco wheel, I really like that for rally racing, for NASCAR oval racing, and I talked about it in that review. I think it's really good for those forms of racing, but I don't know if I want that larger diameter wheel when it comes to racing, like GT cars or other especially Formula cars. So that's where I feel like the 30 centimeter diameter kind of is that happy medium. So it'll be interesting. I mean, the 32 centimeter diameter of this new Ferrari 488 Challenge is a 9/10 replica, so it's not even full size. The actual wheel is even larger, which I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just a sim racing thing, because obviously I have a full size regular, my daily car, Volkswagen GTI, it's probably like, I don't know, 33, 34 centimeters diameter, and that feels right. But when I go sim racing and I use that larger diameter wheel, I'm kind of like, oof, this feels kind of large. So I don't know what it is. Maybe that's just a weird thing between real world and sim racing, or maybe it's just when I get into race cars, I'm thinking smaller wheels. And even as I've gone here recently, I keep on lowering my degrees of rotation on my wheel, which is kind of funny because I remember years ago it was like a big deal when a sim racing wheel was 900 degrees of rotation or 1080. It's like, oh, it's so exciting. Look at all this rotation. You know, it was kind of seen as like 360 is bad. It's not enough. Now, you know, I've raced at I used to race at 900, then, especially when I was on Logitech, because that's just what it was. And then I kind of moved to 540, and here recently I've gone more to 360, where I really want a quicker, more nimble feel. I don't have to turn the wheel as much, especially, you know, open wheel cars, you kind of have to if you do anything like a Formula car. So it's kind of funny to see that backtrack there. So yeah, I don't know. It's just we will see. I don't know where I was going there. I don't know how to end that. So on to the next topic. So next topic is from CES this week, Consumer Electronics Show, all the cool new tech. I know I've been kind of keeping up this week with the different PC type stuff, RGB everything, which I'm actually not against. Again, if you see my computer back there, I got the RGB RAM, and I do like that. So anyway, but there was one thing that kind of came out that kind of hit in the sim racing side, and this is it's not sim racing, but they kind of, I feel like, targeted it. And that's the Asus bezel-free triple screen kit. So a lot of people reporting on this. I actually watched the Linus Tech Tip video on this. I like watching that channel, and they showed this off with a very clickbaity title in it. But anyway, Asus showed off this bezel-free kit at CES, where essentially they go and you put like a piece of plastic over top the bezels on a triple screen, and they mirror the monitors so that you can't see the bezels. It made a big deal about it, but this isn't anything new. I want to say back in late 2015, Frex, that does sim racing products out of China or Japan, somewhere over there in Asia, they reached out to us asking if we wanted to review essentially the same thing. And it was the exact same product. We have a couple pieces of plastic that have angles, so you go and you reflect the monitors, and it kind of gives you, kind of lose the bezels. And, you know, me and Darren, we talked about it, and we decided to say no. Specifically, it was right after I got my BenQ monitors hooked up, and the catch with it was that you had to have flat monitors. You couldn't really have a curve, because then it wouldn't really work. And then also you had to have the angle of the monitors be precisely whatever it is. I forgot what the angle was. Maybe it was like a 45-degree angle or something. And at that time, and even still, I'm running a lot tighter of an angle because I really like to get those monitors wrapped in close. I mean, quite frankly, I don't have them right now wrapped as much as I like to be in it because I got to do a little construction here on the house to, I have those wall-mounted side monitors. Well, all three of them are wall-mounted, but I can't quite get the side monitors as tight and wrapped around me as I like them to be to give that, you know, the bat, as we've been calling it for a long time, effect. So I didn't like that fact of it, so we decided to pass on it. And then here we go, Asus comes out with this bezel kit that they say is going to be available for less than $100. So that's an awful lot of money for a couple, you know, a triangular piece of plastic. But I mean, it doesn't look bad. Seeing the videos of it, I mean, it does cover up the bezel, and so I think it does succeed there. So I mean, if you're into that, I don't think it's a, you know, if you have flat monitors and you're okay with the angle they have, which is a little more open than what I would care for, if I'm being frank, you know, go knock yourself out. But nothing really new there. So yeah, it's kind of funny to see that, and, you know, be like, oh, this is a new amazing thing, and it's like, no, this has been around, and it's not that great because the reflections stretch what you're seeing from the screen. So it, you know, meh, I don't know, not that exciting. But if you're into that, that is an option. I know for me, you know, especially with the ultra wides, the bezels, they don't bother me at all. I always bury my left bezel, especially when I'm driving a tin top car, into the A pillar, so I really never notice it. It's never an issue. But okay, on to our next topic, and that is the DICE Awards nominations for Racing Game of the Year. And boy, I think there's some snubs happening on here. So the DICE Awards, this is an industry gaming awards. I think it's in San Francisco or LA or something like that. It's coming up here soon. I'm not even sure when. But DICE stands for Design, Innovate, Communicate, Entertain. So yeah, it's kind of the big. It's kind of, I think if you're a game designer, this is kind of one of the awards you really want to win, especially here in the U.S. I know the U.K. have their own award ceremony, and I don't know if this is like the American version, or I don't know if it's considered a little bit higher, because there are a lot of developers here in the U.S. But anyway, it's an awards, and here are the nominees: Dirt 4, Forza Motorsport 7, Gran Turismo Sport, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Project Cars 2. Obviously, one of those things is not like the other, but I assume Mario Kart 8 deserves to be in there. I haven't played it, but I do love Mario Kart, so I don't have any issue with that. But there are two games that I kind of have issue with. First up is Dirt 4. I don't know if I wouldn't have that in my top 5 games of the year. From a quote-unquote sim racer's perspective, I don't know if it quite hit the mark. Well, it didn't hit the mark, let's be honest. Dirt Rally seemed to hit the mark more than Dirt 4, which is disappointing because, really had a lot of hype going into it. I played it, I kind of tested it early on, and talking with the developers that we did, really had high hopes for what they were doing, and it just didn't quite pan out. And then also, not only from a sim racing perspective, but just from a racing game in general, I don't know. It'd be interesting to know the sales numbers on it because, the after release support on Dirt 4 has been like one major update that only came out a couple months ago, well after its June release. So it's kind of telling, I believe, to see what the lack of support has been after release. So yeah, I wouldn't have Dirt 4 in there. I also wouldn't have Forza Motorsport 7 in there. I don't think that moves the needle. I don't think there's any innovation there. Design wise, it looks pretty. It runs in 4K HDR if you're running on the Xbox One X. Now it's on the PC, but that's not anything new to the game industry. So yeah, Forza Motorsport 7 just didn't really, it just kind of felt like, I felt like 6 was a step up. Horizon 3 has some step up there, and then 7 is just kind of, I don't know, more of the same. I wasn't too impressed with it. So Gran Turismo Sport, Mario Kart 8, Project Cars 2, I'm totally fine with. If I had to adjust that list, I will say it kind of feels like they and who knows, racing games when it comes to general video game coverage is always kind of sketchy. The person over at IGN who's, playing on a controller, covers a lot of games, but maybe he or she is a go-to racing game person and kind of drops in when a new game comes out, plays it for 15 minutes and puts a 3-minute review out there. They're just not really the best source to go to for this. So I kind of feel like they went, okay, let's see what are the big releases in racing games this year. Okay, let's cover all those. That's what it feels like. I feel like they covered the games that probably had the most, I don't know, maybe marketing behind them. But anyway, if I went and I could remove those two games, I would. And I would put in F1 2017 as a nominee for Best Racing Game of the Year. F1 2017 definitely innovated and moved the needle on from 16. And overall, I thought was a really good package. Overall, we had a pretty positive review of it. And then I would also have WRC 7, which, never would have thought I would have had a WRC game going over a Dirt Codemasters game, but WRC 7 really impressed us. Again, not a perfect game, but just the playability of all the different stages on there just really blew my mind. The stages are just so great, and the physics are good enough that it works. And hopefully those of you who had bugs, those have been worked out. I didn't have, me and Billy, when we did that review, we didn't have any bugs with the game. A bunch of you guys went into the comment section and noted how you had a bunch of bugs and it really wasn't playable. So, your mileage may vary depending on what you have, especially on the PC. So that kind of sucks, but hopefully that's been fixed. And yeah, when I play a rally game, I go back to WRC 7. So I would have those two games in there. Now for who I would have to win Racing Game of the Year, that is a hard one. I really do think F1 2017, WRC 7, Gran Turismo Sport, Project Cars 2, I'll ignore Mario Kart, all really good efforts. Really good efforts that are very, have a lot of playability I enjoy, but also not perfect games. There's things on all of those that I noted I had issues, there were issues with. It just wasn't perfect. Still very good. Man, I don't know who I'd pick from them. Maybe F1 27. I don't know. Maybe 2017. Gran Turismo Sport, been really impressed with the online aspect of it. Project Cars 2 was definitely a big step forward from 1. So, man, I'm a little bit of a toss-up there between F1, GT Sport, and Project Cars 2, I think. I don't know. You guys can talk about it in the comments section. I'm sure you'll have an opinion. But really, neck and neck there. Good games, but not perfect games. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on from that topic. And now let's get into iRacing land. There was a lot of news that broke over the past week. First up is the Chili Bowl is coming to iRacing. Yay! So ever since iRacing came out with Dirt last year, I believe when me and Billy did the review, when we did the review of it, one of I think my final thoughts of it was that we need more tracks, and I specifically said I wanted to see the Chili Bowl. I think I even put an image up of it. I want to see the Chili Bowl. Let's get that in the game. And they came out with the midget car back in season 1 of 2018. That was released in December. I took a look at that in the first look. And the midget car was a lot of fun, but it's not really at home on the large half-mile dirt tracks that mostly make up dirt oval racing in iRacing right now. Those are more for the 410 sprint winged sprint cars and stuff like that. But anyway, the Chili Bowl from Tulsa, Oklahoma is coming to iRacing, a proper short, I don't know what the length of it is, a quarter mile maybe, really small, because if you haven't seen it, it's inside a building. So pretty awesome, and I'm happy to see that. That's gonna be I think that's gonna be a lot of fun to see. Now, the iRacing crew was there this week in Tulsa scanning the track because the Chili Bowl just happened. Actually, it was happening from Tuesday to last night. And something that's pretty cool is iRacing was actually a sponsor of 2 cars in the race, both current and future NASCAR stars, Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell. I mean, both those guys have been in iRacing. Definitely, they've helped develop the dirt stuff. Christopher Bell has spent a lot of time developing the dirt stuff. I've seen him in the Alpha forums giving feedback, and really, it was interesting when dirt was being developed last year. It kind of got to a point in development where the staff at iRacing was really listening to both Christopher Bell and Billy on what to do. I mean, those guys kind of became the lead because they just were they had the experience. Not only did they have the dirt experience, but they were also giving that feedback that you need to really progress that. So both Christopher Bell and Billy had a really big hand in dirt last year development in iRacing, and should both definitely get kudos for that. But anyway, iRacing sponsored their midgets, and we're going to go into spoiler territory. If you haven't watched the race and you're planning on watching it, DVR, what have you. Not the easiest race to watch. I really wanted to watch it, but you got to have Mavs TV, and I cut the cord, so I don't have that. But anyway, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell both qualified on the front row for the finals last night. And Kyle Larson was leading the race, and then his engine blew. And that allowed Christopher Bell, who's running second, to go on and win the race. So the iRacing car won last night at the Chili Bowl. Pretty cool to see. It's always cool to see when you see that transfer from sim racing, real world. And we saw that. And hopefully that got a lot of people in the stands interested when iRacing comes out with a virtual Chili Bowl next year or later this year, 2018. So I didn't write down notes. I know I'm missing this. I'm sure people are screaming, but I don't remember I don't have what the place is called where the Chili Bowl is ran, but it's just always known as the Chili Bowl in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I didn't write down the actual facility, but yep, that is very cool. Next up in iRacing land, the other big news from this week was iRacing President Tony Gardner went on the forums and did a development update for the game, kind of an outlook of where we're heading in 2018. And the big news out of there was AI is coming to iRacing. So he said that they have a small, dedicated team that have been working on AI for iRacing, and that it's actually very far down the road, whatever that means. They're shooting for it to come out this year, where you'll be able to go and have single AI races online, or single... Stop, let's start that over. Will you be able to run single races against AI? That's better. And then you can also do a custom championship season where you can go in and, create your own 12-week season or what have you and run in a championship, which is good to see and is what every game that has dedicated AI, which now is pretty much everyone, because iRacing was the only one that was online only, every game should have. So this is very interesting. This has been a topic that's come up quite a bit over the last couple of years, especially on the Twizzler shows where you guys ask questions. And anytime it's come up, I've always been very much of, I don't think iRacing needs AI. It's an online structure. I think the online works. I don't think it's necessary. But even with that said, there's been a lot of you guys that have wanted to see it, where you go online, you have issues with, getting wrecked, and which I'll always, I stand on this point. If you're able to drive clean enough and well enough, you can get up in the high enough divisions where you won't get wrecked all the time. I mean, I think that's just how it is. That's what I've experienced. So I feel like there's a little bit has to go onto you that you got to put yourself in a position not to get wrecked and work your way up out of those lower split races. Because once you get to higher split races, those guys don't wreck. I mean, it happens once in a while, but the racing is far cleaner. So, I think a little bit of that's on you. And also, if you can qualify towards the front, that also helps too. So, that's always been my kind of stand on that. But anyway, there are folks who struggle with getting wrecked, or maybe they get nervous going and doing online racing, and so they don't really have an avenue to race. So now having an AI offline mode will allow them to do that, which is pretty cool. Tony did say at the beginning when they come out with AI that not every car / series will have AI. There's going to be a handful of them. I think he noted the recently added GRC in there, that they got to figure out how to do the Joker lap and have AI going over jumps and not run into you and stuff like that. So there could be some cars / series that aren't released right away for offline AI, but they will all eventually get it. He also noted there'll be things like, difficulty and slider options that will have to be added to the UI, of course. So, that's kind of a no-brainer, things like that have to be added. But, yeah, so that will be interesting to see. Again, it's nice to see for those who want it. I will say my only concern about it, and I did see some people voice this concern in the iRacing forums, is iRacing has a lot of different series going right now. A lot of series, and the user base is still, whatever size, X. And you have this many users, and you have this many different series that you have to go and fill up. And inevitably, there's series that just don't get as much participation. And once those series don't get participation, it becomes tough. And it really comes down to a dedicated group of people to go and, say, okay, we're going to run this time slot during the week or during the weekend or whatever like that. And there's just a bandwidth issue there in terms of number of users. And now that you go and add an offline mode, now there's a chance that you get some people that would be going and racing online who'd be racing online to dive offline. Now, on the other hand, part of me wants to say that the people who were struggling with online probably just aren't racing. They're just doing test sessions or practice sessions, or they've left the service. So, maybe you'll go and you'll get those people to come back, and now they can go and race offline, so you're not really losing anything from your online user base. But I do think there will be some degree of loss. It's just a question of how much. And, that could go, and it dilutes the pool of people that go and race online in these different series. So it's kind of the point that I was getting at when we reviewed Gran Turismo Sport. And one thing that got me really excited is It was an iRacing system, which was about time someone copied the iRacing system. Just copy it. What I mean, unless it's patented, go ahead, use that system, and apply it to a game that has a huge user base. I mean, comparatively, I know Gran Turismo isn't necessarily the size that it used to be, but there is, I assume, 4 times, 5 times, 12 times as many people that are playing Gran Turismo Sport than iRacing. It could be there's a lot more people that are playing that game, and I think it showed when I would go and race online, because I'd race people that were very close to the same level. Like, I felt like I was having good races. I know some people that go on there and they complain about Gran Turismo Sport getting wrecked and all sorts of that. And I mean, I do think you're going to have a little more of a wrecker issue racing online in GT Sport than you are in iRacing. That's, in general, is a more serious endeavor than Gran Turismo Sport is. But anyway, I think that got me really excited, because it's like finally you have the bandwidth of users to go and populate these races, and really keep it a nice narrow band of people in the same driving skill as you. So that's something where that was cool to see, and we'll see where this goes with iRacing, when AI comes out, hopefully later this year. Anyway, and then besides just AI, that was kind of the biggest thing to come out, because that was a surprise. We didn't know about that. But I want to hit on a couple other topics that came out of Tony's post in the forums. He said that new graphical and physics damage model is in the works, and they are shooting for a 2018 release. This is definitely a big one. Me and Billy kind of talked about this a little bit at some point, but I think iRacing has the best damage model in sim racing, and it's two things. It's not necessarily that iRacing's damage model is a 10 out of 10. It's more probably like a 5 or 6 out of 10. It's just that everyone else is like a 1 out of 10. I mean, the damage model across the board in other racing games is overall pretty terrible. I mean, it's just not very good, both in getting mechanical damage and seeing physical damage. It's just the bar is extremely low. So iRacing, I feel like, has always, you go and hit the wall, you see a fender bust up, you can get the wheel knocked off, I feel like, in a realistic manner. Now, of course, there's things that are kind of ridiculous, cars getting shot up in the air, the IndyCar, the DW12, and, well, all the previous IndyCar as well. You get in a big wreck at Indy, and the car just spins in tornadoes, and it's just, almost vomit-inducing when that happens. So there's clearly big issues there. But I feel like in general, when it comes to just rubbing, getting into people, it's probably the best out there. But they are in need of updates, get it so you don't have tires that are hanging off. And the biggest thing that I remember they talked about damage model, probably, I think it was spring of 2016 they first talked about it. They talked about shedding parts. That's the big thing. Got to shed parts, got to get rid of all that, that energy. That's the issue with the IndyCar, is it just balls up, and then you have all the center of mass moves, and it just keeps on spinning instead of shedding parts and slowing down the momentum of the crashing car. So it's good to see that, and that's hopefully going to come out this year, so that'll be nice to see. Also shooting for this year is day-night transitions. So obviously something else that's becoming a lot more common here in the racing game, sim racing industry. We see what Project Cars has it. Who else has it? A bunch of others, I feel like, have it these days. So that's something that we'll be seeing hopefully in 2018, so that will be good. Speaking of day-night transitions, next weekend is the iRacing Daytona 24. We are planning on running it. I guess, well, not much of a we these days, but me, Darren, Scott Holmes, who's raced on the team the last couple of years, Jens, I believe, someone that Darren brought in, and then Tom Foose, who did some racing with us last year, and he's here locally, not far from where I live. We're going to be racing next week in the Ferrari GTE car, so I'm excited to do that. But like in the past, forever, static conditions in iRacing, so it's 24 hours in the dark. So it'll be nice, hopefully, in the 2019 edition of the race, which is like my favorite race of the year to run, that we'll see proper day-night transitions. So that will be nice. Other news, a new tire model's coming. I don't know what number we're on. I think we're at number 5,000, but a new tire model is in development, whatever that means. And then also working on taking the beta UI to a final, complete, official new UI sometime this year. So right now you can go and try out the beta version. I kind of bounced in between. I went back and I tried the beta not too long ago, and I still feel like it needs some development. So I've kind of been staying more on the old school, more user web base than the new beta version. So hopefully we'll see more developments of that and see that into a final state where it has everything you need right there. And then as far as new content, I'm just going to go and read what Tony wrote here in his paragraph because it sums everything up. As far as content, working on multiple new tracks, including road, oval, dirt, and GRC, and the complete redo of an oval track. I'm curious what oval track that is. For longest time, people have been asking for Michigan to be redone because it's been repaved. Pocono's been repaved and is quite different now. What else has been repaved recently? We got Phoenix. Those are probably the two biggest ones off the top of my head. So it'd be nice to see those get updated, or at least one of those. Let's see. Hopefully we will plug away on more tracks. Speaking of updates, I really love to see updates to the older road courses. I mean, iRacing has been out for coming up on 10 years later this year, and tracks like VIR, Silverstone, obviously. Silverstone's had a complete makeover since it was scanned in iRacing. What else could use some help? There's some of the other ones that definitely. What's the one that's part of the base package up in Connecticut? Lime Rock. Lime Rock could use an update. So there's a good number of tracks there that could see some updates. And while I've always understood, people have always asked to see those old tracks updated. I've always understood why iRacing's kind of held off because, then you go and you kind of have to, because of the work, you kind of have to charge people for that new track, and that's always kind of an icky topic to get into. So I understand why they've kind of just always pushed on to getting new things, but I do think coming up on 10 years into it, especially some of those tracks that came out originally or in the first year or two, there's definitely big rooms for improvement there, and it's getting time. Let's see. Literally dozens of cars in the works in some form or production or licensing, including many new road cars and updates to existing road and oval cars. We already shared working on LMP1 cars. You should have those as soon as next season build. That's very exciting. So we'll be seeing the Porsche and Audi LMP1 cars from the 2016 season, since that was last year for Audi's which R is it on? 10, 15? I don't remember. Anyway, so yeah, that'll be cool to see LMP1 cars. Unfortunately, it's after both Audi and Porsche have left LMP1, and the WEC is just a burning trash can of fire. And if you argue anything differently, you're wrong. The WEC is so just they're just fucked. I mean, they're just like, the WEC is so screwed. I'm tired of WEC and, their leadership that kind of poo-pooed on the IMSA series, and now IMSA is stronger than ever and, running the best tracks in North America. Yeah, WEC, get out of here with your dumb year-and-a-half winter calendar. Ugh. It's so silly. And then you have Toyota running an LMP1, and then you got these other privateer LMP1s, and they look like they were designed by a 2-year-old. Wind tunnel wise, it's just like WEC is a mess. Car count's terrible. Ugh. Anyway, so I'm excited to drive the LMP1 cars though. It's nice to have a proper car for Le Mans. It's just unfortunate that it's an old car. Let's see. These cars and a lot more work to build. More to come on content and everything else. We have moved forward. Hope you like the Chili Bowl video. So there you go. That's the updates to iRacing. So a lot of big things. AI, day-night transitions, new damage physics model. If all, the UI. So if all those things hit in 2018, that makes for a pretty big year for iRacing's 10th anniversary. And that will be very nice to see. On to our final news item of the show, and that is that Dakar, Dakar. Is that right? Okay. Dakar 18 was announced. So Dakar 18 is going to recreate the famous Dakar rally, or Dakar. Dakar. Is it Dakar? That might be it. All you guys, let me know. I know you will. The game is coming from publisher Deep Silver, who also did Assetto Corsa on the consoles, and developer Big Moon Studios, who has worked on WRC and MotoGP franchise in the past. While this first trailer came out this week, which tells us next to nothing. I mean, it shows you got motorcycles and cars and trucks and quads and S by S, SXS, I don't know. Whatever those big things that look like they come from Tatooine in Star Wars, those big brick buses or trucks, whatever the hell they are. I mean, who came up with that? Is that a thing overseas? Because we don't have that here in the U.S., and I don't see what the point is besides just a big fucking truck that runs through the desert. That's what it looks like to me. So anyway, those are coming in the game. Besides that, we don't know much. The game was technically announced back in November at the Lisboa Game Week, and apparently everyone missed that because I don't know what that is. And the video that's online is just a guy talking forever about it, not showing anything. So now we got this first trailer, which obviously doesn't look like what the game will look like. It looks like it's all just a pretty video, and no idea if it's sim or simcade or whatever other silly term you want to throw out there to describe racing in computer racing in 2018. But yeah, that is coming sometime. Dakar 18. So I assume sometime this year since it's 18, and we'll see what it's like. You know, it sounds cool. I like the idea of you can go run different vehicles, run out in the desert and the different environments they show in the trailer. So we'll see. It'll also be interesting to know. I mean, since you got a bike there and a quad ATV, that's probably going to be joystick controller controlled. So hopefully there's wheel support. That's always kind of the concern, that they come out with a game where you have to use a controller for some vehicles. Will they allow you to use a wheel for the truck or the car or whatever those are in there? So that'll be interesting to see. But maybe we'll learn more in the future. Or not. I don't know. Okay, so that will do it for the news. Now I want to go and... let's talk about the Tobii Eye Tracker 4C TLDR review. Let's hold the conversation for a second. So let me get to my notes on this, which is right here. Oh, no notes on this. So anyway, this is the Tobii Eye Tracker 4C, and we first learned about this, and by we, I mean me and maybe you guys in the audience watching our content, back when we reviewed F1 2017. This was an option, an in-game option to turn on, to have a Tobii Eye Tracker, and I think I noted that in the initial walkthrough of F1 2017. I was like, what the hell is this? Okay, never heard of it. But back sometime in the fall, Tobii reached out to me asking if we would like to review it. And I said, sure. So got it. And it sat around on the shelf for a while as I got to other things, but eventually decided to go and play with it over the holidays, planning on doing a review of it. But lo and behold, it didn't test very well. So I didn't release a review of it. So how this works is this essentially goes onto your monitor or onto your TV, and it has two little dots that go and track your eyes, and it's like Track IR. So you can if you move your eyes left and right, up, down, wherever, then the things on the screen will follow your eyes. You can have it track your head. That's an option in F1 2017. You have it both track your eyes or head or both, and then you can change how aggressively it tracks. You can turn it down, so because if you turn up to the highest level, it can really bounce around. But anyway, this ended up not working very well, and I think it didn't work very well because I was never able to properly get it aligned with my eyes. So, this is more for regular gaming where you're going to have this thing, pretty much like right in front of you, attached to your monitor. You're sitting at a desk. You're playing keyboard mouse type game, and it has direct view to get your eyes. The issue I had with this is when it came to mounting this on a screen, which I couldn't mount it back here on my PC because the BenQ monitors are curved, and it gives you a magnet to go and double-sided tape onto your TV or monitor, and then this attaches onto that. And I couldn't do that with the curved screen, and I wasn't going to jerry-rig some kind of way around that. So I took this to first the TV I have here in the studio and tried it out, and with that, and then used the next level rig, it ended up just being low and far away, and my wheel was essentially in between my eyes and the eye tracker, and also was pretty darn low. So I don't know if it can come up at that high of an angle, and so I could just never get the tracking good. I know this because you go in and you calibrate it, and the calibration is really easy, but during the calibration, it always struggled to properly track my eyes, and that's because honestly I think my wheel was getting in the way, and that was after I lowered the wheel deck a whole bunch. So then I went out to actually my living room, and I put this on my TV and out there, and same type of thing. I didn't have as much interference because I went and I grabbed the GT Omega art chassis. It has wheels, so I rolled it out to the living room, and the TV in the living room is up a bit higher. So I didn't really have an issue of the wheel being in between me and the tracker, but I was just too far away from it. It kept on giving me warnings that it wanted me to get closer to it, and there's just no way for me to get closer. It's just not possible with that kind of setup. Now, if I was able to run it here on the bat, I have my monitors much closer to the wheel, but then again, I have it where the bottom of my monitor is kind of like below the back of my wheel, so that wouldn't work either. So in the end, the head tracking was pretty nauseating. It's probably the best term. It was just very distracting. It was very rough. If I turned it down a bit, it would help. But like I would go, and the biggest need I feel like this would, the biggest need for this in sim racing would be looking over to your mirrors. So I'd go and I'd turn my head to look in the mirror, and it would first delay that look, and then when I try to come back, it would like stick and then come, and before I know it, I was like off the road. So it was just it just didn't really work. It just didn't work. And I don't know, like I said, again, I don't necessarily blame this. I think that the Tobii Eye Tracker might work perfectly fine in a standard gaming environment with, again, monitor, keyboard, mouse. But in terms of sim racing, a lot of times you're too far away from the screen, or you have the wheel in between you and the tracker. So it just didn't work, and I tried all different settings, and put a lot of time in this. This is $150, so this isn't inexpensive, and I really wanted to go and give this a proper look through, especially because they sent it to me, and I just couldn't get it to work, and I just kind of lost motivation to go and release a standalone video ripping it, because I just not really an application if you're running on a wheel, and it's very touchy to set up. So yeah, unfortunately, Tobii Eye Tracker, for those of you who are still on a single screen, like if you're on a TV and you roll your rig up to it, you don't have a standalone monitors, or you don't have triple monitors, and you don't have VR, it just ended up not really working for me. So now some people, also real quickly, some people might ask why I didn't put it at the top, the top bezel, or whatever, the top of the TV or monitor. It always said that it wanted you to put it at the bottom, and also it has a bit of an angle, so it's kind of set so that it sits like it's pointing up at your eyes. So if you go and put this on top of the TV, it's going to be pointing up into space, and I don't think this can be turned upside down. I talked about keeping it right side up. So yeah, it's just not an option. It didn't appear like it's an option. Maybe if they're able to go and mess with software or whatever, they could make that an option in the future, because turning it upside down and pointing down would definitely be better. But then again, maybe then at that point it's missing your eyes. So yep, that is our TLDR review of the Tobii Eye Tracker 4C. TLDR, it didn't work for sim racing. Okay, on to our next topic, and this is something I'm calling the conversation. And again, we've kind of done bits and pieces of this on the show over the past couple of years. I started off, I think the second episode ever of Twizzler. I went and I looked, I graphed the uniqueness of tracks in sim racing. What titles had the most, what tracks, kind of tracks they have, what kind of unique tracks they have, because a lot of sims are just getting the same tracks in every single one. Spoiler, that pattern hasn't stopped. That's still a thing. But anyway, want to have a conversation today. I thought about calling it Conversation Street? They call it in the Grand Tour. I don't know what it is. I actually don't mind that part of the show. What I hate of that part of the what I hate the segment I hate in the Grand Tour is their celebrity face-off or whatever. It's just goes on forever. I just fast forward through it. But anyway, I want to talk about what I'm calling the eRacing Relevance Struggle. So over the past week, there's been a couple e-racing, sim race, and by e-race, I mean like online competition, like, e-gaming or whatever, stories that have popped up. The first one was, and we have it up on our website, Paul wrote that up. By the way, Paul that blogs the website does a fantastic job. And that is that sim races have been invited to the Race of Champions, and there's kind of a two parts to it. The first part is that the winner of the McLaren World's Fastest Gamer, Rudy Van Buren, will actually be racing in a real car against the other, Race of Champions drivers. So that is very cool, and I expect him to do pretty well, because, I mean, those top guys that were in the World's Fastest Gamers, I mean, that was a stout list of sim racers that I have no doubt can go into the real world and do well. And I mean, it also helps that, Rudy's younger. A lot of them were younger, but yeah, I think, physically he can handle it. So I expect him to do pretty well. I will say it is a terrible driver lineup this year. I mean, there's some good drivers, but it's just getting kind of like up. It's like, not as last year they had a lot of current drivers. It was in Miami, and they had Vettel there, and IndyCar had a good showing of current drivers, NASCAR as well. It just seemed like it was a better crop. This year, notables are David Coulthard and Tom Christensen, which, they're both about 100 years old. Peter Solberg, also 100 years old. They have Lando Norris there, who at least is younger and up and coming, and, most likely we'll be seeing in Formula One here soon enough. Hopefully, we'll see. He's with McLaren, and they're kind of filled on race seats at the moment. But anyway, that's very cool that Rudy Van Buren's going to be racing in that. And then there is the Race of Champions E-Race, because you got to throw an E in front of everything. And this features 5 of the best sim racers. Brandon Lee, who won the F1 Esports Championship that was held a couple months ago now. Kevin Lurin, I'm going to butcher these, who is triple Project Cars World Champion. Enzo Benito, iRacing Blockpain GT3 Sprint Champion and multiple world record holder. And then Alexander Dorindin, sorry. 2017 EWTCC champion, and lastly, Rudy Van Buren. So these guys are all going to race against each other. Rudy's already got to transfer into the actual race, but the rest of the guys will race, and the winner of that little E-race will then be able to jump in one of the real-world cars and go and race. The E-race itself is being held, they're doing it in Assetto Corsa in a essentially, I guess, a mod version of the ROC Factor Skills Challenge course and the main ROC parallel tracks. So I think the competition this year is in South Africa? No, Saudi Arabia. That's where it's at. But anyway, so that is neat to see. So that is the first e-racing sport version story of the week. And something else that popped up is that a little closer to home here is that NASCAR is working on an e-sport. So articles came out saying that NASCAR is launching an e-sport competition during race weekends this year, which sounds very familiar to what Formula E has been doing now since, I believe, last season. And it's also something that F1 has talked about 6 months ago. We talked about it here on the show Ross Brawn came out and said that he would like to see some kind of esport competition happening around F1, like possibly on race weekend. People can come out and compete and stuff like that. So this is kind of following along those lines. And they talk about having stage races, and it just sounds like it's going to be more or less an at the event, at the track competition, and that's kind of all we know at this point. There really wasn't much more put out beyond that. But where I want to spin this, actually, let's wait a second. So there's that, and yeah, let's leave it there. Okay, so anytime these stories come out in our little sim racing bubble, I'm kind of hating the term sim racing these days. I know we're inside sim racing, but it gets a little bit elitist, and I almost rather be like, we should almost be like inside racing games or something. Because yeah, just sim racing it can be there's some negative connotations with it, and some people that take things a little too seriously. But anyway, for lack of a better term, in our sim racing world that we all run in, there's a lot of hype about these competitions. A lot of hype, and a lot of comments, especially from people that are in it, that really think this is going to be the next big thing and say it's going to rival the real racing events. There's a comment here from Brandon Lee, who won the F1 Esport Championship. He said, I think over time the audience might even grow to be as popular as real F1. Now, there's more to that quote that I'll finish in a second. I think that actually I agree with. But there's been a lot of comments like that. People think it's going to get as big of a sport. Some other people, Darren Cox, who runs Ideas and Cars, he started off, what was it, the Gran Turismo drivers thing. God, why am I forgetting that? Anyway, he used to run Nissan's motorsports division, and he started that, and he has Ideas in Cars, which, if you've been paying attention, he has been all over the Vegas E-Race, the $1 million E-Race that ran at CES last year. Now, notably, no Vegas E-Race this year, so I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means that didn't go well. I don't know if that is any reflection on that. I mean, again, they had a $1 million purse for something that, quite frankly, I think it had like 10,000 viewers live online, which is a lot of money for not that many viewers, which is something else I'm going to get into here in a second. But I've seen Darren out there really. Oh, and he was also all over the McLaren World's Fastest Gamer. I mean, he was definitely involved in that. So he's made comments that he thinks this is going to be this is the next big thing. This is going to be the next big thing in motorsports. And then also I know Dom Duan, who manages Team Redline, he's made comments. There was an interview of him from the E-Racing. He thinks this is the next big thing, going to be rival real racing and stuff like that. And there's been others. So there's been a lot of comments like this, and there's been a lot of comments from people that I feel like are shareholders of it. They definitely have a vested interest in it doing well. And I'm just not as bullish on it, and there's multiple reasons. One of the reasons is that, ask me if I'd rather watch real racing or a sim race, what would be my answer? I'd rather watch real racing. So in terms from a watching standpoint and interest, eyes to screen, real racing is struggling right now. I mean, all the numbers are down globally. Here in the U.S., it's very hard to get any kind of coverage on it. I mean, there's a lot of racing around the world we can't even watch, and the stuff that is on TV, the TV audience and ratings aren't great. There was a little uptick in F1 and IndyCar this year, but, I mean, to be fair, they were already so low that, it's not much to write home about. NASCAR, which has been by far the most popular racing series in the U.S. for, since IndyCar split up in the mid 90s, I mean, their ratings have been really down, which isn't a surprise. I've been wanting to do more real racing coverage. I did like that. I think I did a video after the F1 race at Circuit of the Americas with the Max Verstappen pass and track limits, because that really got me fired up. And I want to do a video talking about how just kind of fucked NASCAR is. I mean, they really just are. They've just ran that thing into the ground. And people like me I've watched NASCAR religiously since '95 when I was 7 years old. And I mean, I just have zero. I've really little, very waning interest in it for a number of reasons. And I'm not the only one that's showing in the ratings. So anyway, Real Racing is down in viewership. So I don't understand it from an eyeballs perspective how it could be as big or even close to in the ballpark. But there is an argument on the flip side. And let me finish up this Brandon Lee quote because I do agree with this part. He started off with, "I think over time the audience might even grow to be as popular as real F1 for the pure fact anyone can go and buy a copy of the game. Not everyone can buy an F1 car and drive it." Well, that's an understatement. Barely anyone can. "It's all about motorsport being accessible. And of course, some people said that our race was more entertaining than the real Grand Prix the following day," which that is true. You can definitely get online races that are entertaining. For the record, I do watch a decent amount of the online races. Not as much as I used to because I'm just kind of busy with family and everything. But I mean, I do watch them, and there's definitely ones that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and they can put on definitely a better show than the real world because aero push and aerodynamic issues aren't as much of an issue in the virtual world as they are in the real world. Even though I know the virtual world's trying to go and simulate that more, but to some degree I almost don't want them to because it's nice in the virtual world when cars can run together, and not like the real world where guys can't follow within a couple seconds of each other. So that's nice to see from an entertainment standpoint. But I guess where I'm going here is I have much lower expectations for esports, e-racing, let's say, than other folks out there. And I think probably a lot of the industry, or a lot of the fan base, like you guys that are watching. I think there are a few things that they should go for when it comes to esports that would be quite nice to see. So I think that sim racing esports can indeed attract younger fan base. Racing fan base in general is getting very old. IndyCar talks about this. A lot of the fan base is 50s plus, and they just aren't getting young fans. NASCAR is seeing the same issue. And so I think that being able to do a sim racing esports will attract younger fans who go, "Oh, I could go and possibly do this." I mean, look at all these winners of these different esport events. They're all kids that are like 20 years old. I mean, they're all kind of around that range. So there is that. I think that there's potential to grow it if there's a tie-in with real-world series that could allow racers to earn a living. So, jumping off the back of that article that came out earlier this week talking about NASCAR looking to get into esports, NASCAR driver slash TV, I don't want to say personality for lack of better words, but he works for NBCSN now, Parker Kligerman, who is an avid sim racer. Darren talked about racing him back years ago when Parker was like 13 years old or something. So Parker's done a lot of sim racing, and then he got into going and racing in the real world and still races some truck races now. Unfortunately, he's one of the young guys that kind of got shuffled out a bit. But he went and he posted a story over on Medium, which I guess is a website, kind of a blogging site, giving his thoughts on what would work. And he has some really good ideas. And essentially what his idea is that real-world NASCAR teams should have an esport racing team with a driver. And then you have a 3-tier system where you have the first tier being people going and racing NASCAR Heat 2. The console games that can get out to the broadest audience. Then you can go, and that's almost kind of like your truck series. Then you move up, and I think from there, he says you go to iRacing, I believe. And that's kind of your Xfinity series. And then from there, you have your current iRacing Peak Antifreeze World Series, World Cup, whatever it is. That's your top-of-the-line drivers racing iRacing, a much more hardcore simulation. And you kind of start off where you get the guys that start running in NASCAR Heat series, and they're just looking to get in and qualify. And then if they can move up, maybe there's award system in there where they can win like a wheel or pedals, or they can win a PC, and they can allow them to go and make that next jump up to the PC realm from possibly, the Xbox or PlayStation. And then, from there you get to the top series where you get into the iRacing World Cup. And, those drivers are associated with a real world team. And then you also have it where you can have some races a year where there's some spots available for real world NASCAR drivers to come down and race in that series and really work on the popularity of getting people to be able to watch it. One thing he noted was, right now that the fan base online for watching things isn't very big. Let me see where it's at in the story here. I think he noted how when it came to the viewership for the iRacing Peak Antifreeze series, how the race at Daytona last year had 17,000 views on YouTube, which is nothing. And then how Joe Gibbs Racing has been doing a kind of weekly sim racing series on iRacing, and how on Facebook they had something like 180,000 views or something. It was a really big. Oh, here it is. They had 105,000 views on one of its league races being broadcast on Facebook. So it's about how the broadcast needed to be not only on YouTube, but also got to be on Twitter and Facebook, all live, all these different platforms. Now, one thing, to be fair, on Facebook, if you scroll by a video on Facebook, so if you follow Joe Gibbs Racing, you're on Facebook, and you go and you scroll by it, they pretty much account that as a view. Facebook's really quite bad when it comes to that. So a lot of times the views on Facebook will be way inflated versus YouTube, which YouTube makes you sit around and watch for 30 seconds, a minute. We don't really know what the number is, but you have to go and watch it for a certain amount of time before that click that counts as a view, where I don't think Facebook really has that. So anyway, that is a good point, and it's got to be something where you can go and spread it. He also noted how the Formula One finale last year with that F1 Esport Championship that Brandon Lee won, that has 675,000 views on YouTube, which that's getting into some real numbers. That's getting pretty sporty. So you got to do things like that to get it out in front of people, but. I do like the team aspect of this. We're seeing this in other sports, kinda. There's a bunch of NBA teams that have started, or NBA owners / teams that have started esport teams to play I think games like Overwatch and things like that. And they're actually stationed in the series where in the city where they're at. So I think the Boston Celtics have an esport team. And all those guys live in Boston, and virtually all different other cities across the U.S. So I really like that idea, and having that relationship with a professional team and that influx of money will definitely help things out. And while I don't expect the sim racers to get rich doing this, because just the viewership isn't there. I think there's ways to increase viewership, but the racing market, again, is only so big, and it's not nearly as big as overall esports market. The viewership on some of those big esport events are, millions of people watching live, and it's never going to happen. I just blank, it's never going to happen in sim racing that you're going to have millions of people. You could have possibly a million people, but millions of people watching live at once, it's just not going to happen. So you're not going to have the type of money that some of those guys make. Some of those top esport guys, they make six figures a month. There's some insane numbers out there. Them making millions of dollars a year. That's not going to happen here. But it'd be nice to see it where if you could have a official series and you have someone who's a Joe Gibbs or Hendrick esport driver, that maybe they can get on the payroll and maybe they can make $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year. Not much, but enough to make a living, because this takes a tremendous amount of time to do. And something else that was really cool, Michael Conti, who won the 2014 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze series, he had a comment to Parker Kligerman's idea that I thought was pretty interesting, and I saw on Twitter, and he said that to Parker's point about the potential of NASCAR esports, while I can't divulge what top drivers in the NASCAR Peak Series make, I can say that the highest paid driver is probably barely topping 4 digits sponsorship dollars for an 18-race season. I can also say that tweets about my NPAS events and results topped over 100,000 impressions throughout 2017 season. The potential for ROI is massive at the point because the market's going rate is low for now. With a bit more marketing, sponsors and teams alike can stand to profit from a deal with a NASCAR iRacing esport team. So, I think there's a lot of good stuff there in that comment. First off, these guys are making maybe making 4 figures, maybe making $1,000 a year, 2,000, 3,000 off sponsorship. That's very little for the amount of time and effort goes into this. I know there's people out there that want to say, well, they're just playing a game, and we fall in the same thing here on this channel. People go like, well, you have this is your day job. You have a job to go play video games. Well, a vast amount of my time isn't playing a game. It's editing videos and running this or that. Trying to put shit together, build rigs. There's a lot of other stuff to it, setting up cameras, that isn't playing and isn't fun. So, these guys go and they put a lot of hours, and, talk about what they're making per hour. These guys are probably making $1 an hour, maybe, at best, for the amount of time they put into it. So it makes it so it's not feasible to be a full-time job. And it'd be nice to see guys be able to hook up with real-world teams, whether it's NASCAR, we're talking about Formula One. That's probably about it. I don't think IndyCar is enough money to add someone else to the payroll. But it'd be nice to see some of these teams in these sports in these racing series that have a little more money that can go and just make a living being able to do this. And I think that's something that could be feasible, and they could get enough sponsorship, and they could be out there peddling the sponsors. It could be a value added. As Michael Conti noted here, impression-wise, he had over 100,000 impressions. There is a return on investment on that. There is an ROI. Is it a straight one-to-one ROI? Probably not, because the impressions, again, people scrolling through what counts as an impression, are they actually really reading it? Is everything you tweet out there have a sponsor plug in it? Not necessarily. So, that number obviously isn't necessarily that high, but it can still be pretty high. So, I think that's one of the golden things that esports and sim racing should reach for. It's being able to go and have teams that are associated with real-world teams, because until you have that, there's no money to make in this. The guys just aren't going to make money. The views are going to be, the views will continue to increase probably because more and more people find out about it and they go and they watch it. But, you're not going to see that hockey stick growth until you get on board with someone like a Joe Gibbs Racing that has, 200,000 plus followers on Facebook or something like that, where half of their followers were able to go and, possibly see a race as they scroll through in their Facebook feed. And maybe they stopped and watched it. I stopped and watched one of those races one night, and there was a good amount of people watching it. There was a good amount of chat. I was actually pretty impressed. So, from that standpoint, I do think there's an avenue there. And then the last point of it is, you hope that some of those guys that are able to go and maybe get to a top rung in a F1 or NASCAR eRacing series might possibly have a chance at a real-world experience or ride at some point. I kind of it's too bad that today real-world racing isn't like the 90s or early 2000s, at least when I think of like the NASCAR world, because back in those days, if you had talent, you could get a ride. Guys like Jeff Gordon had talent, got a ride. The early 2000s, Parker Kligerman, he was part of this whole phase of all this. You got to have a development driver. You got to have a development team. That all these NASCAR teams had so much money that they had these development programs, whether it was Team Penske or the Gong Show over at Roush or whatever. There was development there, and if you had talent, you got a ride. Unfortunately, these days, you have to have money and have a sponsor to get a ride, and very few people that are purely talent-based get in. But, it'd be cool to see maybe there's a situation where you have a team that's really strong and has the funding that they could go and see like, hey, this guy's doing really well in the eRacing. Let's see what he can do in the real thing. I'm excited to see what happens with Rudy Van Buren here and McLaren. I think there's a chance we could see him get into maybe their GT3 car or something like that and really show off his talent. I mean, obviously, we've seen this before. I mean, even now, there was an article not that long ago talking to William Byron, who won the Xfinity NASCAR championship this year. He's going into the 24 car next year in the Cup Series. Well, this year in the Cup Series. And, one of his biggest, he started racing on iRacing. I mean, the kid's he's like 19 years old or something. It's super young. And when he was like 13, he got an iRacing subscription and he started racing, and that's where he really learned. And then he started doing the real world stuff in tangent to iRacing. And pretty much the whole article, him and another young guy, they're kind of like, yeah, I mean, training on iRacing, that's what did it. And it's like, and I've raced plenty of real world drivers on iRacing too. So obviously there is a development there, and the guys that can be fast in the sim world, not all of them, but I think a lot of them, can go and transfer that to the real world and be quick, and maybe a little more of a proper esports series can elevate a handful of them up. I mean, again, so much now is tied to having money. I think it'll be rare, but I think it'd be potential that a couple of guys in the right situation could possibly boost themselves up into a real race car and really show what they can do. So that's kind of my thought on esports and sim racing. I think there's just a lot of hype right now that this is going to go and this is going to take on real racing, and you're going to get as many viewers as they do for the real thing on Sundays, and I just don't see that. I can see a growth in viewership, but I really do think that there needs to be a connection between your current sim racing teams and the real world teams in series that have financial, and they can tie together and maybe make this more what can I say, a genuine job. Get on the payroll and then use the reach of these teams and these series like NASCAR and Formula One to go and really up the viewership of the esports things, and maybe a couple guys will be able to go and take that over to the real world. But and then also I think, and if that can get larger there, I think you will get younger people to see that and get more interested. Will you get a ton of young people into it? I don't know, because so much right now of the gaming industry in general is people rather watch people play games online than play it themselves. So I don't think that's as much of a one-to-one transfer as people like to say it is, but I do think that will help out a bit. So I think there is potential there. I'm just a lot more cautious on what the potential can be of sim racing esports than I think a lot of our little microcosm is. Okay, let's go ahead and get to happenings and try to do it in a reasonable manner, since this show's gotten long and my voice is getting tired. I knew it was going to be a long one because I wanted to go and hit on some things. And again, I kind of see this as more of a podcast than actually sit down and watch on YouTube. But anyway, or at least you watch on YouTube, kind of play it in the background while you dink around. Let's get the happenings. And first up, you might, I don't know if you can see the computer behind me if you are watching on YouTube, but I've upgraded my GPU here recently, and I did it just in the nick of time. So right before Christmas, or around Christmas, I don't know what it was, I went and I picked up a 1080 Ti, going up from my 1070 I had in there, and man, what an improvement. I think I did the benchmark in a Assetto Corsa, and I maxed everything out here on the bat. Everything, I didn't do any post-processing filters because I hate those. But maxing it out, the benchmark, I think I was like at 77 FPS on the 1070, which is pretty good. I mean, Assetto Corsa runs really well in terms of frames per second. And then on the 1080 Ti, same settings, I got 133 frames per second average, which is just like insane. I was also able to go, and when I was racing, when I was trying to review the Tobii Eye Tracker here, I went and I had that on the 4K TV out in the living room, and I took my PC out there, and I maxed out F1 2017 in 4K, and I was able to do the benchmark at Melbourne during the day, average of like 75 frames per second, which is just insane to be able to go and push that many pixels, maxed out graphics, and do that well. So 1080 Ti, it's a beast. I'm looking forward to actually, I haven't hooked up the Oculus Rift yet, but I want to hook up the Oculus because that's one thing. The 1070, I just felt I didn't have enough power to run the Oculus. I had to turn things down so much. It was just like, too much of a pain to really use. So I'm excited to go and hook that up and see if I can have the graphical fidelity at a level where it isn't so distracting. That's something else from CES I forgot to hit on. The Vive have the Vive Pro coming out with more resolution, which is great to have more resolution, but I just don't know if the PC is powerful enough. Because again, I feel like it takes like a 1080 Ti to like properly run the Oculus or the Vive. So I don't know if more screen resolution is needed in VR. I just don't know if we have the computing power yet. But anyway, another topic. I was going to get at here on the GPU. By the way, if you're looking to buy a new GPU like a 1070 or 1080 or 1080 Ti, good luck. The Bitcoin mining is out of control right now, and if you go like on Amazon or Newegg, you cannot find them. I mean, I got my graphics card right when I pretty much got it days before they all went out of stock, and I mean, even cards that they were putting up at a premium of like $1,000 or $1,100, $1,200 for a 1080 Ti. I mean, they're just sold out. I mean, they're sold out everywhere. You go over to NVIDIA's website, they're sold out of all their cards. I mean, you just cannot find them. And now it has allowed me to go and put my 1070s up on eBay and sell them for more than I paid for them, which is crazy. I mean, 1070s right now are going like in the $600 price range, which is quite insane for a card that was in the 400s when it was brand new, used ones. So, yeah, the Bitcoin market has just made a mess of the whole graphics card market. So if you're looking to get a new graphics card, good luck. If you have an extra one that you're looking to get rid of, this is the time to do that. It's crazy. On to the final topic here in happenings, and I have this as happenings here. So this was a way, especially in an episode that's as long as this, to really bury the lead and one of the primary motivations behind doing this Twizzler episode. So you may have noticed that content has been a little light here recently, and that is because I am no longer a full-time employee with Inside Sim Racing, because I have accepted an engineering position with an aerospace company and I've gone back to engineering full-time. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what's more. That's what's happening. I'm trying to figure out how to put this into words. But yes, I'm no longer full-time because I have a full-time job and a full-time day job back in engineering. And there's just not enough hours in the day to do this full-time as well. The reason I went back to doing engineering was, I mean, literally, it's really just a family decision. The pay is way more than what I'm doing, than what I was making with Inside Sim Racing. And not that Inside Sim Racing was paying me peanuts. I've been making enough money to, if I wasn't married, which I'm still am married. My wedding ring broke. What happens when you buy a rubber band wedding ring? But it's, if I was by myself, I'd make enough money to go and probably rent a 2-bedroom apartment and, pay the rent and, have enough money for food and pay the car payments, and probably not much more than that. So I was making enough to make a living, but it certainly was less than what I was making when I was doing engineering by a good amount, and essentially I had an offer come through that I just could not pass up. Way more money than what I was even asking for, or even expecting to get back. So, between the pay and, benefits It's nice to have health insurance. It's nice to have a 401k with matching. It's nice to have a 3 weeks vacation a year, every other Friday off. There's just a lot of benefits there. So pretty much it came down to a purely math deal where it was just too good of an opportunity to pass up on. And also not only with Inside Sim Racing, all this equipment here, lights, camera, microphone. I pay for all the stuff out of my pocket, and obviously there's some things that are nice to get, like upgrading the PC back there, and it can be used as a tax write-off. But if you own your own company, you realize that when you buy things for your company, the tax write-off is like very little. It doesn't really make up for all those taxes you have to pay in April every year, which is it's substantial. It was very substantial paying taxes last year. I pulled money out of my retirement savings to pay taxes. So, just from a brass tax type of deal, I went with the job that I was able to pay way more money and allow, money for me and my family and to put into this house and to have me put into retirement savings, not just my wife. Thank God she's a physical therapist and she has a good paying job because she has a doctorate degree. But now it kind of got to the point where it's my time to hold up my end of the bargain in this relationship. And also, it's also a time thing. Doing an engineering job, I work 40 hours a week. I wake up, I go to work, I leave work at 5, 6, I've already started, and I don't think about it. I don't stay up all night working on it, editing, staring at computer screens, burning my eyeballs out, my eyes that I got LASIK surgery on last March. And definitely staring at screens is not good for your health. Playing video games, sim racing isn't the bad part of staring at screens, it's the video editing and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's I normally spend 60 hours plus 60, 80 hours a week on this. And a lot of times when, my wife's home, my daughter, my stepdaughter, bonus daughter, that's what I like to call her. I think it's a little more positive than stepdaughter, but we have her half the time. There's plenty of times where, I'm not spending time with them because I'm working. And I think that's reflected in the content we've had over the past couple of years, where it kind of ebbs and flows how much videos get out. I think there's times like 2017, for example, August, September, October, we had like over 1 million views a month on the channel, like 1.3 million at one point over a 30-day span on YouTube, because I busted my ass and I got out F1 2017 review and WRC 7 review, Forza Motorsport 7 review. What else? There was Project Cars 2, there was Gran Turismo Sport, there was hardware reviews in there. I really chopped down and got out a lot of content. E3. E3, I went and I bought a gaming laptop for $1,300 that I could edit on at E3. And I got videos out then, and then after that there was kind of a break because you're just so exhausted from just burning the candles at both ends, going to bed at 4 in the morning, waking up at 8. They get tired, and then there was kind of a lull there in July where I didn't really get much out. Then August it picked back up, and it was very heavy there through October, and then I was worn out again because I spent those months just really working, and not spending much time with my family. I got worn out, and that's kind of the dichotomy that I always fought with here, where for me to do quality work on the channel, I had to put all of myself into it, and it was like an all or nothing type thing. And this is a flaw of my part, Darren was definitely better at balancing the work-life stuff than me. He was definitely better at getting in there and, keeping it a little more 9 to 5. It wasn't always 9 to 5, and there was always working weekends, and there was, stuff like that. But, for whatever reason, I found myself a lot of times, spending late nights doing it, my wife going to bed and me not going to bed with her, which, she never liked. And so, yeah, it got me in these spurts where I was all work, and then exhausted. And I was like, oh, hi, family. Good to meet you. Who are you? And so then I spent time trying to make it up there, and then we get heavy again, and it was like, okay, here we go. So it's very ebb and flow like, and I can be a bit of a workaholic, and if I was single, I think I would have continued, and maybe I wouldn't have taken a look outside at getting back to a normal day job. Even though inside sim racing is by far more challenging than engineering, and at least for me. Yeah, but with me having a family, and I'm probably in this little space of sim racing YouTube, I'm probably in the minority of having a family. I feel like everyone else is pretty much no kids, single, or have in a relationship with someone who helps out or supports it. If I was single, I could probably go and I could probably keep going, and I would just burn the candle at both ends, and I would get stuff done, or work at night when I had really good motivation and thoughts were really flowing, and sleep during the day, and it'd be no big deal. And I'd be in an apartment where I wouldn't have to maintain on like a house that we're doing a ton of work on, and a yard to mow and shit like that. But that's not my situation. It's not my situation, and I have a family, and I haven't been the best husband. Haven't been, by best I mean attentive husband. Haven't been the most attentive bonus dad to my 7-year-old, and it kind of got to a point where it's like, where's your priorities at? And decided priorities family. And even though, which is kind of funny to say, because one of my big gripes, and something else that's kind of pushed me away a little bit of frustration with this gig, is some of the fan base. Most of the fan base, you guys are great. 90% of people out there, it's like 90%, 10% that are super supportive and great. There's a 10% of people that just take things too seriously. Maybe could spend a little more time with family or friends, or understanding that there's something outside of sim racing. Like, this isn't the end all be all. This isn't the most important thing in the world. There's other things in life that are more important. So just decided for my family, and even a bit for my health, physical, mental. Like I said, I physically burning out my eyes, not sleeping, drinking a bunch of energy drinks that make me feel like shit, not working out, just again, these are somewhat on me. I'm sure I could be more productive and more focused during the day and get things done where I'm not having to go and really do the late nights. You really can't avoid the late nights when software review comes out. Those things are like, you get the game a couple days before and you got to go at it, and you got to get those videos out. And I would love to spend more time with the game, because that would give a better review. But then, if you release it a month or two later, everyone's already bought it and made a decision, and it's over. You kind of got to jump on it. So those things are pretty tough. But yeah, it just, it does take a little bit of a toll on. It did take a toll on me physically, and it takes a toll on me mentally sometimes, having to read the comments section. I've stopped. I haven't been reading the YouTube comments for the most part over the past, I don't know, probably since October, probably around that range. Probably since the Gran Turismo Sport review, because it's just like, the YouTube comment section is just a trash can fire. At least on those videos, when you get a lot of views and you get a lot of people that are outside this little ecosystem that is like, the viewers who watch this show. It's just a bunch of shit, and it's just like, you just don't need it. And I try my best to filter things out, and I do filter out a fair amount of things. But I mean, it's true with anything. I've heard other people that do creative stuff say this. You can read 100 positive comments, and then you read one negative one. That's that negative one that sticks in you. That's a hard thing you kind of got to push out. And at some point you just kind of ask yourself, why am I subjecting myself to this? Why am I subjecting myself to get frustrated from comments from people that I'll never meet? And if I did meet in real life, I probably wouldn't give a damn what they think, because it's probably like, it's just, you're probably like you're off or odd or whatnot. And not that there hasn't been, constructive criticism's fine. I've never had any problem with that, but it's just some of the comments just get like really, really in the mud, and it's just like, what are we doing here? What am I doing here? Why do I go to the computer and read through comments, and I go out and then I'm frustrated, and my wife's like, "What's wrong with you?" And or I take it out and yell at my kid, because I'm irritated. It's just like, why? And quite frankly, this little break that we've had the last few weeks, I've been a lot more. It's been nice, not having to read comments, not have to worry about what people are gonna think of a video I'm working on. Sleeping's been nice. Going to bed at the same time as my wife is nice. Multiple reasons. It's those things, and getting back into a normal 9 to 5 and a bit of routine and things like that is very nice. A little bit of structure goes a long way. So I've quite enjoyed the time out. Now, with that said, I'm not saying I'm completely gone from Inside Sim Racing. I'm just saying right now I'm part-time. But I don't know what that's going to mean. There's Inside Sim Racing, another thing that's been something that got me, kind of going down this road, is we have new ownership. Darren's not involved anymore, and Darren I trusted tremendously, and I consider a very good friend, and someone I'll always go to bat for, regardless of what some people think out there, which is also very annoying. Because obviously there's been times where Darren's brain and mouth have disconnected, and he said some, bad things. And I've told him that, he knows. But the amount of grief he gets isn't proportional, and and people. There's been people he talked about. I talked to him recently on the phone. He's saying how there's people who he's had to work for sim experience now, and work with them, and people that have said I didn't like you, but now that I've talked to you on the phone, I see you're a good dude, and it's like Darren's a great guy. I lived with him and his family for 6 months, If he was a shitty guy, I wouldn't have done that. And I learned a lot from him. Even some of his parenting skills. Dealing with that, and so yeah. That Darren's great, but with him now out of the picture ownership wise, there's, I don't necessarily entirely know what's gonna be happening. Some things gonna stay status quo, some things I believe are gonna be changing. And but regardless, it just creates uncertainty, and uncertainty when you're not the owner can lead to you being on the wrong side of history. So what if I lose my job? Then I'm kind of left without an income. So multiple things there that kind of led me to decide to go down this path. But anyway, I still have interest staying in sim racing. I'm still interested in doing hardware reviews. Possibly even doing a weekly show like this, or bi-weekly. That's a possibility. It just really comes down to I have major time constraints between a day job, my family, working on this house, activities. There's just been, even doing stuff. There's a lot of things I passed up. I had opportunities to go see real races last year that I passed up on because I was like, oh shit, I gotta work. I need that weekend. My wife works every other weekend, and those weekends she's off, I need that time to go and get videos out. And I just felt like I couldn't step away, and I couldn't take any time off. So that's just. So yeah, that's gonna be tough. So at this point, I don't know how involved I'll be. Now, I will say, if you've been looking to get into this industry, maybe now's the time. So shoot me an email at john@insidesimracing.tv. I can pass your information on to the power at B if you want my job. But I hope I can at least stay in part time. in some form. I do have ideas of how to do it and have it not be so time consuming. But I don't want to give out those ideas because anytime I feel like I've had a lot of decent ideas, but if I give out a good idea, someone else steals it. So that's annoying. So I don't want to give out those ideas yet. I'm going to keep those to my chest. But yeah, we'll see where things go. And I will say as summation, I hope, if this is getting towards the end of the road for me, on Inside Sim Racing or sim racing coverage in general, I do hope that the work I've done has been helpful, and I know there's plenty of you out there who do appreciate it. I see the comments, I get the emails. Been getting some more emails here recently, people kind of reaching out, and I haven't responded, but I greatly appreciate it. And there's some things I wish could have done better. I kind of give I'm my hardest critic, and I kind of give myself like a C rating. I think there's some things that have been really good. Like I'm really proud of a lot of the hardware reviews we've done recently and the software reviews. I wish there was less breaks in between videos. I wish some things could have been done faster. I wish some ideas that I had could have made it out there. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of left on the ground floor, mostly just because of a time constraint or whatnot. I wish I figured out my internet issues sooner so I could do more live stuff. only recently got I think the internet working as of like yesterday, to where I was getting like 24 megabytes per second upload speed, getting a new router, a new modem, and stuff like that. I'm like, damn it! I wish I could have had this. Back over the summer, I upgraded my internet. I still only had 13 up, which isn't bad, but Anyway, that's beyond the point at this point. But yeah, so it's been good and bad, mixed in here. I do want to thank some people in case this is getting towards my swan song. Darren, of course, allowing me to come back to Ohio, move the business. Obviously it created more work me just doing this alone, but then again, Darren was transitioning out to Sim Experience, working there, which I totally get that. Wanting to go and get into off the camera and all the the negatives that come along with being in front of the camera, and get to more just talking to people. I mean, just the other day I was we do consulting through Inside Sim Racing, and people don't take us up on it often, but someone who's looking to start from scratch. Here's the budget, what do I get? And it was so nice talking to them on the phone for like over an hour, and hearing what they want to do and giving them feedback, and they were very appreciative of the information I was giving them for just $100. So because the guy was using sim racing to go real racing, go race some pretty sweet shit too, and it was so nice having that one-on-one conversation and not just reading something on a screen. So I definitely understand Darren, really enjoying what he's doing now and being able to have that more personal interface with people. Sponsors, Thrustmaster's been amazing. iRacing's been great. We've reached out to software companies, developers before about sponsorship, and haven't gotten the most warm response. But iRacing's always been there, and been a big fan of them since the beginning, way before I ever joined Inside Sim Racing. Next Level Racing, those guys there have also been great with their sponsorship. So wanted to shout out to those kind of three companies for supporting this and seeing the importance in supporting this, and also seeing the return on investment. I mean, all the time people come, and we get it a lot. Darren said he's gotten this a lot working with Sim Experience. People are like, I got into sim racing and I bought this or that because of seeing your show. It's like people that are especially getting into it do really respond to what we do, and the sponsorship. And hopefully, that sponsorship can go forward here on the show, or just in general. I hope that people that are involved in this industry see the value in sponsoring, creators, people on YouTube doing these videos. Personally, there's a lot more ROI in sponsoring an Inside Sim Racing or any other YouTube channels out there than there is in working with these racing series and doing these eRacing events and stuff like that. A lot of times. We've seen a lot of sponsorship. I assume a lot of money to take to put on these events, and not a whole lot of people watching. And I just don't understand why that keeps on happening, where they could just cut us a check and we'll just do our thing. And also, I ask that the audience, becomes a lot more understanding about sponsorship and content. I understand that there can be a conflict of interest receiving sponsorship money and then reviewing products or competitors' products, or et cetera, et cetera. I understand, but I really pride myself on being honest and upfront, and calling it like it is. And even when I've said negative things about someone who sponsored us, no one's ever left over what we said. I've never gotten one negative email from anyone who's a sponsor of us about content we've done. I've gotten negative emails from people who don't sponsor us. They give us free shit. They just expect us getting free shit to go and say it's great, which is which is asinine. They give us something for free, which doesn't cost them very much, and then we give them a ton of advertisement doing a video. So that kind of blows my mind. But I think the user base needs to understand that the only way we've been able to go and put out this quality content, and this content that takes a lot of work, especially the reviews, and is because we had sponsors that allowed me to do it full time. And since I've gone back to work, you've seen there hasn't been content because it's really tough. And to some degree, I think it's amazing the guys that do put out as much content as they do that have a day job. I think that's very impressive because it is a lot of work. And, I think they should be supported. And, even if they're sponsored by some company that you don't care for their products, don't give them grief. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. You don't have to do that. You just know that because of their sponsorship, they're able to put out more content. So that's why I think the users should be a lot more accommodating to and nicer to. And if they are, there'll be a lot more quality content out there. Because right now there's just this big thing. If the users it's almost like when bands sell out. It's like, I loved you when you were all punk rock and you were playing all these shows with just 100 people, but then you went and sold arenas and you sold out and I don't like you anymore. I mean, that's what it feels like. And it's kind of, and that's quote unquote sellout. And I think that's kind of ridiculous, and that is detrimental to the content you get. Again, this is a free content. I like to listen to Dinner with Racers podcast, and they like to say this is a free podcast. We drive around the country, how many 13,000 miles, all these terrible drives they do. It's crazy, to give you free content. So, this is free, and it allows to stay free and stay frequent from, the help from sponsors that can help out, because it is a lot more work. One thing I'm looking forward to is just getting back to sim racing. I miss just racing. I'm really looking forward to running the Daytona 24 next weekend, because when you're doing the videos, you spend so much time with the reviews and editing, and in some degree I feel guilty to just go race for fun, because I feel like I'm racing for fun. I'm putting off normally like a piece of hardware. So it's if I could pick one or the other, I'd much rather just go race for fun and not have to worry about setting up cameras and getting OBS to record, my middle screen or whatever, and all this audio and stuff. It is a lot more work. So I just want to say that little rant here, that I hope that the user base can be more supportive and a little more understanding. That this isn't just guy. There doesn't need to be a jealousy for people that are able to make a living playing video games, because it's not that. I didn't make a living playing video games. I make a living making videos, running a website, recruiting sponsors. There's a lot more to it. Getting paid to go buy equipment to give you a more quality finished product. So there's a lot more to it, and I just have to say more understanding. So with that note, I think it's time to end this odyssey, and hopefully I thoroughly buried the lead of this conversation here and what's going on with me and the potential future. But hopefully things will be clarified coming in the coming months. Like I said, I like to stay around doing things part-time, but if you don't see me for a while, this is why. This is why I've been gone for a bit, and this is why, it's a good chance I might only pop back periodically or not at all. I don't know how this is going. It's the company going forward. I mean, it's out of my control. So we will see. So with that, I want to end on the. It's always hard to stick these landings. I want to end on a quote from former IndyCar announcer Marty Reed, who, by the way, was should go down in history as one of the worst play-by-play people ever in racing or in sports in general. I mean, it was truly awful. There's plenty of videos out there of just Marty Reed saying dumb stuff on YouTube, multiple. It's a compilation. It's awful. Terrible announcer. On ABC, always bad coverage, always terrible coverage for IndyCar. But anyway, what gave me a little bit of respect for him was one line he said back in the race where Dan Weldon was killed back in Las Vegas 2011. Which, by the way, if you listen to Dinner with Racers, and you should listen to that podcast, the Paul Tracy one, he gets into some detail of seeing Dan after the crash by accident, and that was a hard one to hear. But anyway, he said when they announced that he had been killed that he says when he leaves the broadcast, he never says goodbye. He says until next time, because goodbye is so final. And at the time he said, goodbye, Dan Weldon. So I'm not going to say goodbye for now, but I'm going to say until next time. I hope you enjoyed watching. See you guys.